They said the Lycan queen I was forced to marry was heartless, but she treats me like I'm precious. Hey, my loves, hit subscribe and tap that little bell. It's free, it's quick, and it means you'll never miss a single heartbeat of our next romance. And don't forget, drop your city or country in the comments. I love seeing where our beautiful community is listening from. Now back to the story. The iron chains felt heavier than they looked. I'd been sitting in this stone chamber for 3 hours, wrists bound, listening to my father's voice echo through the castle halls as he negotiated my future like I was livestock at market. The alliance must be sealed with blood and bond. Lord Castellan's voice boomed from beyond the heavy oak door. Your daughter for our protection. The Lycan queen has agreed to the terms. My father, King Edmund of Halvaria, said nothing for a long moment. I imagined him there, crown sitting heavy on his graying head, weighing the cost of my life against the survival of our kingdom. The math wasn't difficult. 1 daughter for thousands of subjects. She's my youngest, he finally said, and I heard the crack in his voice. Alara is gentle, scholarly. She's never even held a sword. The queen didn't ask for a warrior. She asked for a bride. The word hit me like a physical blow. Bride. Not hostage. Not political prisoner. Bride. I'd heard the stories about the Lycan queen since childhood. Whispered tales that made children hide under their blankets, and grown men check their doors twice before sleeping. They said she'd killed her first husband on their wedding night, tearing out his throat when he'd tried to consummate their marriage. They said she bathed in the blood of her enemies, and wore their bones as jewelry. They said she'd united the Lycan clans through sheer brutality, crushing anyone who dared question her rule. They said she was heartless. The door swung open, and Lord Castellan entered, a mountain of a man with silver streaking his dark hair, and scars crisscrossing his face like a map of violence. Behind him walked 3 guards in the black and crimson livery of the Northern Territories. Princess Alara, Castellan said, his voice softer than I expected. It's time. Can I say goodbye to my father? He shook his head slowly. King Edmund has already departed. He thought it would be easier this way. Of course he did. My father had never been good with difficult emotions. When my mother died, he'd locked himself in his study for a week. When my older sister married and moved away, he'd sent a servant to wish her well. And now, selling his youngest daughter to the monster queen of the north, he couldn't even look me in the eye. The guards unlocked my chains, but immediately replaced them with silk cords. A pretty illusion of choice. I was still a prisoner, just a better-dressed one. The queen has sent a carriage, Castellan said as we walked through the corridors of my childhood home. The journey to Silver Peak Castle will take 4 days. You'll be provided with everything you need, except freedom. He glanced at me, something like sympathy flickering across his scarred features. The queen could have simply taken you. She could have razed Halvaria to the ground and claimed you from the ashes. Instead, she offered alliance, protection, and trade agreements that will keep your people fed through the winter. Some would call that mercy. Some would call it the illusion of choice. We stepped outside into the courtyard, where a massive black carriage waited, pulled by 4 horses that looked too large, too wild to be fully domesticated. Their eyes gleamed amber in the fading sunlight. Lycan horses. Of course. A woman stood beside the carriage, tall, broad-shouldered, with long dark hair braided down her back, and leather armor that had seen a real combat. Her eyes were the same amber as the horses, and when she looked at me, I saw the wolf beneath the human skin. Princess Alara, she said, her voice rough like gravel. I'm Captain Mira. I'll be your escort to Silver Peak. My jailer, you mean? Her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile. If that makes you feel better about the situation, sure. Your jailer. She opened the carriage door. We leave immediately. The roads aren't safe after dark, even for Lycans. I climbed into the carriage, finding it surprisingly comfortable. Plush velvet seats, thick furs, even a small table with wine and food. This wasn't how I'd imagined being kidnapped would feel. Captain Mira climbed in after me, sitting across with the casual alertness of a predator. The carriage lurched forward, and I watched through the window as my home disappeared behind the trees. What's she like? I asked after an hour of silence. The queen. Mira was quiet for so long I thought she wouldn't answer. Finally, she said, complicated. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. She poured herself wine, offering me some. I shook my head. Look, I'm not going to lie to you, princess. Queen Saskia is dangerous. She's killed more people than I can count. She's ruthless when she needs to be. And she doesn't forgive betrayal. You're really selling this marriage. Mira actually smiled at that. But she's also the best leader the Lycan territories have ever had. She's fair. She protects her people fiercely. And despite what the stories say, she's not a monster. She paused. Not always, anyway. Why does she want a bride? Why me specifically? You'd have to ask her that yourself. Mira took a long drink of wine. But if I had to guess, the queen has enemies. Lots of them. An alliance with Halvaria strengthens her position. And you, she studied me with those unsettling amber eyes. You're supposed to be kind, gentle, everything she's not. So I'm a political prop. We're all political props in one way or another, princess. The question is what you do with the role you're given. Night fell fast in the northern territories. Through the carriage window, I watched the landscape transform. The gentle rolling hills of Halvaria giving way to dense forests and jagged mountains. The moon rose huge and silver, and I heard howling in the distance. They're just announcing our presence, Mira said, noticing my tension. The packs know we're passing through. They won't attack. How reassuring. We stopped for the night at a way station, a fortified inn that catered specifically to Lycan travelers. The other guests gave me wide berth, their amber eyes tracking my movements with predatory interest. I was the only human in the building. Mira showed me to a small room on the second floor. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone but me. I'll be right next door if you need anything. Do I need to be worried? No, she said firmly. You're under the queen's protection now. Anyone who touches you answers to her. But some of the younger wolves might not have heard yet, and it's better to be cautious. I locked the door as instructed and sat on the bed, finally allowing myself to feel the full weight of what was happening. In 4 days, I would marry a woman I'd never met, a woman legends painted as a monster. I would leave behind everything I'd ever known and step into a world where I was fundamentally different from everyone around me. I thought about my books, still packed in trunks somewhere in the carriage. I'd been allowed to bring my library, a small mercy that my father had negotiated. At least I'd have something familiar in my new prison. Sleep came fitfully, full of dreams about amber eyes and sharp teeth. The next 3 days blurred together. Endless forests, mountain passes, and small villages where Lycan children ran alongside our carriage, their eyes bright with curiosity. On the morning of the 4th day, Captain Mira pointed through the window. Silver Peak Castle. It rose from the mountainside like it had grown there naturally, all dark stone and sharp towers, surrounded by walls that looked thick enough to withstand a siege, flags bearing the queen's sigil, a silver wolf's head on a black field, snapped in the wind. My new home, my new prison. The carriage rolled through the gates, and I saw them, dozens of Lycans in human form, going about their daily business. Guards patrolled the walls, servants carried supplies, children played in the courtyard. It looked almost normal. The queen is waiting in the great hall, Mira said as we stopped. She wanted to meet you immediately. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together, trying to appear calm. How do I address her? Your Majesty works. Or just Saskia, if she gives you permission to use her name. Mira's expression softened slightly. She's not going to eat you, princess. The stories say otherwise. The stories say a lot of things. Most of them are bullshit designed to make enemies think twice. We walked through corridors of dark stone lit by torches that cast dancing shadows. Servants stopped to bow as we passed, their amber eyes curious, but not hostile. Finally, we reached massive double doors, carved with wolves in various poses of hunt and battle. 2 guards pulled them open. The great hall was enormous, high vaulted ceilings, stone pillars, and windows that let in streams of afternoon light. At the far end, on a throne of dark wood and silver, sat a woman, Queen Saskia. She stood as we approached, and my breath caught. They'd told me she was beautiful in the way predators are beautiful, all sharp edges and danger. They hadn't prepared me for the reality. She was tall, with long silver-white hair that fell past her shoulders, and eyes that shifted between gray and amber depending on the light. She wore black leather and silver armor, practical but elegant, and moved with the fluid grace of someone utterly comfortable with violence. But it was her face that stopped me. Strong features, yes, but not cruel. There was intelligence in those eyes, and something else I couldn't quite name, something that looked almost like loneliness. "Princess Alara," she said, her voice low and rich. "Welcome to Silver Peak." I remembered to curtsy, though my legs felt weak. "Your Majesty." She descended from the throne, closing the distance between us. Up close, she was even more striking and more intimidating. She circled me slowly, studying me like I was a puzzle to solve. They told me you were gentle, she said finally, scholarly, that you preferred books to politics. That's accurate, Your Majesty. Good. She stopped in front of me, and for the first time, her expression softened slightly. This court is full of politics and games. It will be refreshing to have someone who doesn't play them. I'm still a prisoner, her eyebrow arched. Are you? Aren't I? She was quiet for a moment, then gestured to the guards. Leave us. When they hesitated, her voice turned hard. I said leave. That includes you, Captain. The hall emptied, and suddenly it was just the two of us, predator and prey, queen and bride. Ask me what you really want to ask, Saskia said. My heart pounded, but I forced the words out. Are you going to hurt me? No. The answer came immediately, firmly. Never. Then why am I here? Why force this marriage? She walked to one of the windows, staring out at her kingdom. Because I'm tired, she said quietly. Tired of fighting. Tired of being alone. Tired of being the monster everyone expects me to be. She turned back to me, and in that moment, she looked almost vulnerable. I asked for you specifically because the report said you were kind, honest, that you saw people as people, not as tools to be used. So I'm supposed to what? Humanize you? Maybe. She crossed back to me, stopping just out of arm's reach. Or maybe I just wanted someone in this castle who wouldn't flinch every time I entered a room. I studied her face, looking for deception, for cruelty. I found neither. I won't lie to you, Alara, she continued, using my name for the first time. This marriage serves political purposes, but I'm not asking you to love me. I'm asking you to give me a chance to prove that the stories you've heard aren't the whole truth. What do you think about Queen Saskia's true intentions? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. The wedding happened 3 days later. I'd expected something grand and terrifying, a spectacle designed to show off the Queen's power and my subjugation. Instead, it was almost intimate, just us, Captain Mira as witness, and an elder Lycan priestess who performed the ceremony in the castle's private chapel. The priestess spoke in the old tongue, words that sounded like growls and whispers combined. Saskia translated quietly beside me. She's asking the moon to bless our union, to make us strong together, to weather the storms that come. Her hand found mine, warm and surprisingly gentle. In Lycan tradition, marriage isn't about ownership. It's about pack, about choosing someone to stand beside you when the world turns hostile. Does the moon actually answer? I whispered back. Her lips curved, the first real smile I'd seen from her, sometimes, in ways you don't expect. When the priestess bound our hands together with silver cord, I felt something, a pulse of energy that made my skin tingle. Saskia's eyes flashed full amber for just a moment, and her grip tightened on mine. What was that? I asked, the bond taking hold. She looked almost surprised. It doesn't always work with humans. The fact that it did means... She trailed off, shaking her head. We'll talk about it later. The ceremony ended with us drinking from the same cup, wine mixed with herbs that tasted like forest and moonlight. When Saskia's lips touched the rim where mine had been, something in my chest tightened. You're married now, the priestess said in heavily accented common tongue. 2 souls, 1 pack. The moon watches over you both. That night, Saskia showed me to our chambers, a massive suite that took up the entire top floor of the eastern tower. I'd been expecting 1 room, 1 bed, and had been steeling myself for what traditionally came next. Instead, I found a sitting room with a fireplace, a library that made my breath catch with its floor-to-ceiling shelves, a bathing room with a pool-sized tub, and 2 separate bedrooms. This one's yours, Saskia said, opening the door to a room decorated in deep blues and silver. I'm across the hall. You can lock the door from the inside if it makes you feel safer. I stared at her. You're not going to consummate the marriage? She leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Not unless you want to. And given that you still look at me like I might eat you at any moment, I'm guessing that's not happening tonight. The alliance is secured by the marriage itself, not what happens in the bedroom. She pushed off the frame, moving closer. Alara, I know what you've heard about me. I know the stories about my first husband. Want to know the truth? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He tried to force me on our wedding night, said it was his right as my husband, that I needed to learn my place. Her eyes went cold. I showed him what happens when someone tries to take what isn't freely given. The wolf came out and, well, The stories got that part right. I did kill him. And you're telling me this to make me feel safe? I'm telling you this so you understand that I value consent above everything else. What happened to him happened because he couldn't grasp that simple concept. She moved to leave, then paused. You're my wife now, Ilara. That means you're protected, provided for, and respected. But I won't touch you until you ask me to. And if you never ask, then we'll simply be partners in name only. She left, and I stood in my new room, trying to process everything. This wasn't how I'd expected any of this to go. The next morning, I woke to find breakfast already laid out in the sitting room. Fresh bread, honey, fruit, and tea that smelled like the forest. Saskia was nowhere to be seen, but there was a note in sharp, elegant handwriting. Good morning. I have council meetings all day. Mira will show you around the castle. The library is fully at your disposal. Dinner together tonight if you're willing. Captain Mira appeared shortly after, looking more relaxed than I'd seen her. Sleep well, princess? It's just Ilara now, I suppose. Queen consort, technically, but Ilara works. She grinned. Ready for the grand tour? Silver Peak Castle was enormous, and far more complex than I'd imagined. Mira showed me the training grounds where Lycan warriors practiced in both human and wolf forms, the kitchens where staff prepared meals for hundreds, the infirmary where healers tended to the sick and injured with a combination of herbs and what Mira called old magic. The queen established this place 20 years ago, Mira explained as we walked through a garden that shouldn't have been able to grow this far north. Before her, the Lycan clans were scattered, constantly fighting each other. She united them through a combination of strength and actual leadership, made alliances instead of just conquering, built infrastructure, created laws that protected the weak as well as the strong. That doesn't sound like the monster from the stories, because most of those stories were started by people who wanted her to fail. Rival clans, human kingdoms that feared what a united Lycan nation could do. We stopped by a fountain carved with wolves. Don't get me wrong, Saskia is dangerous. She's killed plenty of people. But they were people who attacked first, who tried to hurt her people, or who proved they couldn't be trusted. She's not cruel for cruelty's sake. Why are you telling me this? Mira met my eyes. Because she likes you. I can tell. And I've served under her for 15 years, and I've never seen her look at anyone the way she looked at you during that ceremony. Like maybe finally she could let her guard down a little. We don't even know each other. Not yet, but you will. She smiled slightly. Come on. I want to show you the best part. She led me to the top of the castle's highest tower. From there, I could see the entire territory, mountains and forests stretching to the horizon, villages dotting the valleys, and in the distance, smoke rising from the forges of what Mira said was the largest trading city in the north. This is what she built, Mira said quietly. Not through fear, but through actually giving a damn about whether people lived or died, about whether they had enough food, whether their children were safe, whether justice existed for everyone or just the powerful. I thought about my father's kingdom, where nobles lived in luxury while farmers starved, where justice depended entirely on how much gold you could offer the magistrate. She's not perfect, Mira continued. She's made mistakes. She can be cold, ruthless when she needs to be. But she's a better ruler than most humans I've met, and she genuinely wants to do right by her people. Why did she really choose me? You'd have to ask her that. But my guess? She saw in you something she lost a long time ago. Gentleness, the ability to see good in people. Hope, maybe. Mira turned to face me fully. Look, I know this whole situation is messed up. You didn't choose this, but you're here now, and you have a choice about what comes next. You can spend your life resenting her and being miserable, or you can try to see past the legends and find out who she actually is. That evening, I dressed carefully for dinner. Not in the elaborate gowns I'd brought from home, but in simpler clothing that seemed more appropriate for the castle. I found Saskia already waiting in the private dining room, having changed from her armor into dark leather pants and a loose white shirt that made her look almost normal. You came, she said, and I heard genuine relief in her voice. You asked. We ate in comfortable silence at first, until Saskia said, Mira told me she gave you the tour. What did you think? It's not what I expected. Any of it. What did you expect? I considered lying, being diplomatic, then remembered she'd asked for honesty. I expected a fortress full of monsters, warriors who'd kill me as soon as look at me. I expected you to be cruel and violent, and everything the stories claimed. And instead I found a functioning society, people who seemed genuinely content. A ruler who apparently cares about infrastructure and justice. I met her eyes. And a woman who gave me my own bedroom and asked for consent. She laughed, a real laugh that transformed her entire face. When you put it that way, I sound almost boring. You're many things, Saskia. Boring isn't one of them. We talked for hours. She asked about my studies, my favorite books, what I'd dreamed about doing with my life before all this. I asked about how she'd unified the clans, about Lycan culture, about what it was like to transform into a wolf. It's freedom, she said, her eyes distant. In wolf form, everything is simpler, clearer. You're just instinct and sensation, and the pack bond connecting you to everyone else. No politics, no expectations, no weight of a crown. Can you change whenever you want? Most Lycans can, yes. The full moon makes it stronger, harder to resist, but we're not slaves to it like the stories claim. She paused. Would you want to see? My wolf form? I should have been terrified. Instead, I found myself curious. Yes. She stood, moving to the center of the room. Don't be frightened. She knows your pack now. She won't hurt you. The transformation was beautiful and terrible. Bones shifting, fur sprouting, her body reshaping itself in seconds. Where Saskia had stood, there was now a massive white wolf with those same gray-amber eyes, easily the size of a horse. The wolf approached slowly, and every instinct screamed at me to run. But I held still as she came close enough to touch, her breath hot against my hand. Hello, I whispered. The wolf made a low sound, not quite a growl, more like a rumble of acknowledgement. Then she did something unexpected. She laid down at my feet, her massive head on her paws, and looked up at me with what could only be described as contentment. I reached out slowly, running my fingers through her fur. It was softer than I'd imagined, and warm. The wolf's eyes closed, and that rumbling sound continued. You're not so scary, I told her. When Saskia transformed back, she was smiling. She likes you. I can feel it through the bond. What bond? You mentioned it during the ceremony. She settled back into her chair, pulling on the shirt she'd discarded. When Lycans marry, there's sometimes a mate bond that forms. It's rare with humans, but it happened with us. I can feel echoes of what you're feeling. Not everything, but strong emotions. And you'll start to feel mine too, as the bond strengthens. That seems invasive. It can be. But it also means I'll always know if you're in danger, if you need me. And it means we're connected in a way that goes deeper than just words or promises. She looked almost vulnerable. I didn't know it would happen. I was hoping, but I wasn't sure. The fact that it did mean something. What does it mean? That we're actually compatible. That this marriage isn't just political convenience. That maybe the moon saw something neither of us did. She reached across the table, offering her hand. I know this is all overwhelming, but I'm glad you're here, Alara. Genuinely glad. I looked at her hand. Strong, scarred from battles I couldn't imagine. Then I thought about everything I'd seen today. The functioning kingdom. The people who respected rather than feared her. The wolf who'd laid at my feet like a puppy instead of ripping out my throat. I took her hand. I'm not saying I trust you completely, I said, but I'm willing to try. Her smile was radiant. That's all I'm asking. What do you think about the mate bond? Is it a blessing or a complication? Share your opinion in the comments. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange sort of domestic bliss. Saskia had duties that kept her busy during the days. Council meetings, training sessions with her warriors, audiences with clan leaders who came seeking judgment or favor. But she made time for me every evening, and slowly, I began to see beyond the legend to the woman underneath. She was funny, in a dry way that caught me off guard. She loved poetry but was embarrassed about it. She could quote entire passages from philosophical texts, but claimed she wasn't intellectual. She was fiercely protective of children, and had personally funded orphanages throughout the territory. I don't understand you, I told her one night as we sat in the library, books scattered around us. You're nothing like what I expected. What did you expect? She looked up from the military history she'd been reading. A tyrant. Someone who ruled through fear and violence alone. I do rule through fear when necessary. Some people only respond to strength. She set her book aside. But fear alone doesn't build a lasting kingdom. You need people to believe in something more than just survival. You need them to think that tomorrow might be better than today. That sounds almost optimistic. I've been called many things. Optimistic isn't usually one of them. But she smiled when she said it. The mate bond grew stronger each day. I'd be reading and suddenly feel a flash of satisfaction that wasn't my own. Saskia winning a training bout. Or I'd be walking through the gardens and sense frustration bleeding through. A difficult meeting. She said she felt my emotions too. My contentment when I found a new book. My occasional homesickness. Does it ever stop? I asked. The feeling of someone else in your head? You get used to it. Learn to filter out the background noise and only notice the strong emotions. She paused. Does it bother you? Sometimes. It's intimate in a way I wasn't prepared for. I can have the priestess weaken it if you want. It would never go away completely without breaking the marriage itself, but she could mute it. I thought about it. About losing that connection. Surprisingly, the idea bothered me. No, it's fine. Just different. Things weren't perfect, though. I noticed things that didn't quite add up. The way certain servants avoided eye contact with Saskia. How she sometimes locked herself in her study for hours. And when she emerged, she looked exhausted. The occasional nightmare that woke her in the middle of the night, and through the bond, I'd feel pure terror before she shut it down. You're keeping secrets, I said one morning at breakfast. She looked up sharply. What makes you say that? I can feel it. Through the bond. There are parts of you that are walled off, hidden. I set down my tea. I'm not asking you to bare your soul, but if we're going to make this work, I need to know I'm not walking into something dangerous. She was quiet for a long moment. You're perceptive. I like that about you. She stood, pacing to the window. Yes, I'm keeping secrets. Things that could put you in danger if you knew them. Things I'm not ready to share yet. That's not reassuring. It's honest, though. She turned back to face me. I promise you, Alara, nothing I'm hiding changes the fundamental truth that I won't hurt you, and I'll protect you with everything I have. But there are complications in this court that go beyond what you've seen. Political maneuverings, threats I'm dealing with, until I'm sure you're ready to handle them. I'm keeping you separate from that side of things. You're treating me like I'm fragile. No, I'm treating you like you're precious. The word hung between us. There's a difference. That afternoon, I met with some of the castle's staff. Not servants, but the people who actually ran things. The steward who managed supplies, the healer who oversaw the infirmary, the captain of the guard who coordinated defense. They were all surprisingly open with me, and I got a clearer picture of how the kingdom actually functioned. Saskia wasn't a tyrant. She was genuinely a good ruler. But she was also paranoid, constantly preparing for threats that might or might not materialize. She's been this way since the assassination attempt 5 years ago, the healer told me quietly. 3 of her advisors died. She barely survived. It changed her, made her trust fewer people, who tried to kill her. We never found out for certain. The assassins died rather than be captured. But there are theories. Rival clans who didn't want unity. Human kingdoms who feared our growing power. Or, she hesitated, or there are rumors of a group within the Lycan territories themselves. People who think Saskia has become too soft, too willing to make peace with humans. They want a return to the old ways, raiding, conquering, ruling through pure strength. That night, I confronted Saskia about it. Why didn't you tell me someone tried to kill you? She'd been removing her armor after a training session, and she froze. Who told you? Does it matter? Why keep something like that from me? Because I didn't want you to worry, and because the threat is handled. Is it? Because from what I hear, you don't even know who was behind it. Her jaw tightened. I have suspicions, but without proof, I can't act. Accusing the wrong clan could shatter the fragile peace I've built. She pulled off the last piece of armor, setting it aside. Yes, there are Lycans who want me dead. Yes, there might be another attempt. But dwelling on it doesn't help anything. I'm your wife. I have a right to know if I'm in danger. You're not in danger. Anyone who came after you would have to go through me first, and I guarantee you that's not happening. She moved closer. Alara, I know this is frustrating. I know you want complete transparency, but some things I need to carry alone. That's not how partnerships work. This isn't a normal partnership. You're human in a Lycan court. You're vulnerable in ways I'm not. The less involved you are in the darker aspects of ruling, the safer you are. Or, I countered, keeping me ignorant makes me an easy target because I won't see threats coming. She actually laughed at that. You're right. Damn it, you're right. She sank into a chair, suddenly looking tired. Okay, what do you want to know? I sat across from her. Everything. Who are your enemies? Who can't be trusted? What threats are you dealing with? She told me. About the traditionalist faction led by a clan leader named Vorak, who thought the Lycans should conquer human territories rather than trade with them. About the neighboring kingdom of Morsovia, which had been making aggressive moves along the border, about the internal politics of the Lycan clans, the delicate balance of power she maintained through a combination of strength and diplomacy. "Vorak is the biggest threat," she said. "He's powerful, commands loyalty from several clans, and he's smart enough to move carefully. I can't prove he was behind the assassination attempt, but I know it in my bones. Why haven't you dealt with him? Because challenging him without proof would make me look weak and paranoid. And if I'm wrong, I'll have made an enemy of a powerful ally." She rubbed her face. "This is what ruling actually looks like, Alara. Not grand battles and clear-cut victories, but political chess where one wrong move could trigger a civil war. You're carrying all this alone. I have advisors. Mira, a council of clan leaders I trust, mostly. But you don't really trust anyone completely." "No," she admitted. "I don't. I felt the weight of that through the bond. The loneliness, the constant vigilance, the exhaustion of never being able to truly relax." Without thinking, I reached across and took her hand. "You're not alone anymore," I said. "I'm here, and maybe I don't understand all the politics yet, but I can learn. Let me help carry some of this." She looked at our joined hands, and something in her expression cracked. "I don't know how. Start by not shutting me out when things get difficult." She nodded slowly. "I can try." The next morning, she invited me to sit in on her council meeting. The clan leaders were clearly surprised to see me there, but none objected. I listened as they discussed border disputes, trade agreements, and the Morsovian situation. Vorak was there, a massive Lycan with rust-colored hair and cold eyes. He barely glanced at me, but I felt the dismissal in that look. I was beneath his notice, a political tool rather than a person. "The humans grow bolder," he said during the discussion of border issues. "They test our defenses, probe for weaknesses. We should respond with strength, not diplomacy." "Strength without wisdom is just brutality," Saskia countered. "We respond proportionally. They test, we defend. They attack, we retaliate. But we don't escalate unnecessarily." "Your human bride has made you soft," Vorak said, and the temperature in the room dropped. Saskia's eyes flashed amber. "Care to repeat that?" "I speak only truth, my queen. Since your marriage, you've become more cautious, more willing to negotiate when we should dominate." "I was negotiating long before Alara arrived. Or have you forgotten how I united the clans in the first place? Through alliances, not conquest." Her voice was deadly quiet. "If you have concerns about my leadership, Vorak, bring them forward formally. Don't hide behind implications and insults." For a moment, I thought he might challenge her right there. Then he bowed his head slightly. "My apologies, Your Majesty. I spoke out of turn, but I saw the hatred in his eyes, and I knew Saskia was right. This man wanted her dead." After the meeting, Saskia found me in the library. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "Don't be. I needed to see it." I closed my book. "He's planning something, isn't he?" "Almost certainly. But until he moves, my hands are tied. Then we watch and wait." She smiled slightly. I like that. That night, as we said goodnight at our respective bedroom doors, a ritual we'd fallen into, Saskia hesitated. "Thank you," she said, "for today, for not running when you saw how complicated things actually are. Where would I run to?" But I smiled when I said it. "You're remarkable. You know that? Because I can sit through a boring council meeting? Because you're braver than you give yourself credit for? Because you see me, the real me, not the legend. And you're still here." She reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was so gentle it made my breath catch. "Sleep well, Alara. You too." I lay in bed that night, feeling her presence through the bond, still awake, working on something in her study. I sent her a pulse of warmth, comfort, not even sure if I was doing it right. A moment later, I felt surprise, then gratitude, then something warmer that I couldn't quite name flowing back through the connection. What do you think Vorak is planning? Drop your theories in the comments. Winter came to Silver Peak with a vengeance. Snow piled against the castle walls, and the temperature dropped so low that ice formed on the inside of the windows. The Lycans didn't seem bothered. Their higher body temperature kept them comfortable. But I spent most days huddled near fireplaces, wrapped in furs. Saskia found this endlessly amusing. "You're from the south," she said one evening, watching me add another log to the fire. I should have anticipated this. "I'm from a region where winter doesn't feel like a personal attack," I shot back, teeth chattering. She laughed and moved behind me. wrapping her arms around my shoulders. Her body heat was incredible, like standing next to a furnace. Better? I should have pulled away. We'd been careful about physical contact, keeping things friendly but distant. But I was so cold, and she was so warm, and the bond hummed with contentment at the closeness. Much better, I admitted. She didn't let go. We stood there for a while, watching the fire, her chin resting on top of my head. It felt natural. Right. I have to go to Winterhold tomorrow, she said eventually. One of the northern clans is having a succession dispute. I need to mediate before it turns violent. How long will you be gone? 4 days? Maybe 5? Mira will stay here with you, and I'll leave extra guards. She hesitated. You'll be safe. But if anything feels wrong, anything at all, I want you to lock yourself in the tower room. There's a passage there that leads to the tunnels below the castle. Mira knows the way out. I turned in her arms to look at her. You think something's going to happen while you're gone? I think Vorak is patient, and having me away from the castle would be an opportunity. I'm probably being paranoid, but better paranoid than dead. Exactly. She cupped my face in her hands, a gesture that had become familiar over the past weeks. I don't want to leave you. I'll be fine. I survived this long without you. That was before. Her thumb brushed across my cheekbone. Before you became important to me. My heart stuttered. Saskia, I know. Too much. Too fast. I'm sorry. She dropped her hands and stepped back. I'll see you before I leave in the morning. She left, and I stood by the fire, my face still warm from her touch, the bond singing with emotions I wasn't ready to name. Saskia left before dawn. I woke to find a note and a necklace on my bedside table. The necklace was a silver wolf on a delicate chain, and the note read, "So you don't forget who you're married to. Back soon." Sigh, I put it on, the metal warm against my skin like it had been holding her body heat. The first day without her was strange. I'd gotten used to her presence, both physical and through the bond. Now there was distance. I could still feel her, but it was muted, like hearing someone's voice through a thick wall. Mira kept me company, though she was clearly on high alert. Extra guards appeared at every corner. The castle felt tense. Is there something specific you're worried about? I asked her the second day. Just a feeling, she said, but her hand never left her sword. The attack came on the third night. I woke to the sound of fighting, steel on steel, shouting, and underneath it all, the howls of wolves. Through the bond, I felt Saskia's sudden surge of alarm even from miles away. Mira burst into my room. Get up, now! We need to get you to the tower. I didn't argue. I threw on a robe and followed her into the corridor. The sounds of battle were louder here, coming from below, from the main halls. What's happening? Vorak made his move. He's got mercenaries, humans and Lycans both, attacking the castle. He wants you dead to hurt Saskia, and he wants to claim she can't even protect her own wife. Mira pulled me down a side corridor. The tower. We need to... A massive Lycan in wolf form crashed through a window ahead of us, blocking our path. Its fur was dark as midnight, and its eyes fixed on me with clear intent. Mira transformed instantly, her wolf form smaller than the attacker but faster. They collided in a tangle of fur and fangs, and I pressed myself against the wall, trying not to scream. Run! Mira's voice came out as a growl. Tower! Go! I ran. The castle was chaos, fighting everywhere, blood on the stones, bodies of guards and attackers alike. I made it to the tower stairs and climbed, my lungs burning, my legs shaking. Behind me, I heard footsteps, heavy, getting closer. I reached the tower room and slammed the door, throwing the bolt. Then I searched frantically for the passage Saskia had mentioned. Where was it? Where? There. A section of stone that looked slightly different. I pressed it, and a section of wall swung inward, revealing darkness. The door shuddered as something massive hit it from the other side. I grabbed a torch from the wall and plunged into the passage, pulling the stone door shut behind me. It sealed with a click, and I heard furious howling from the other side. The tunnel was narrow and went down, down, down. I followed it blindly, one hand on the wall, the torch held high. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. Through the bond, I felt Saskia. Rage, fear, desperation. She knew I was in danger. I tried to send her something, anything to let her know I was alive, but I didn't know how. The tunnel opened into a larger passage, part of an underground system that probably dated back centuries. I heard water dripping somewhere, and the air was cold and damp. Which way? Mira had said she knew the way out, but I was alone. I had to guess. I chose left and walked as quickly as I dared, trying not to imagine what might be following me in the darkness. After what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes, I saw light ahead, a grate leading to the outside. I pushed it open and emerged into the snowy forest beyond the castle walls. The cold hit me like a fist. I was wearing only a nightgown and robe, thin slippers that were already soaked through, but I was alive. I looked back at the castle. Smoke rose from several windows. The sounds of fighting continued. I couldn't go back, but I couldn't stay here either. I'd freeze to death in minutes. A howl split the night, not from the castle, but from the forest around me. Hunting howls. They were looking for me. I ran. The forest was a nightmare of shadows and snow. Branches caught at my robe, tearing it. My feet went numb. I could hear them behind me. Multiple wolves, spreading out to cut off my escape. I'm going to die out here, I thought. After everything, I'm going to freeze or get torn apart in these woods. Through the bond, I felt Saskia getting closer. She was coming back, racing toward the castle, but she wouldn't make it in time. A wolf emerged from the trees ahead of me, rust-colored fur, cold eyes. Even in wolf form, I recognized him. Vorak. He stalked toward me slowly, savoring the hunt. I backed away until my back hit a tree. No weapon, no escape. Just me and the monster who wanted me dead. If you kill me, she'll never stop hunting you, I said. Amazed, my voice was steady. Saskia will tear apart your entire clan to get to you. He transformed. A painful-looking shift that left him naked in the snow, apparently unbothered by the cold. That's the idea, little human. She'll come for me in rage, make mistakes, and I'll be ready. I'll take the throne that should have been mine from the start. She united the clans. She built something real. She made us weak, made us bow to humans instead of conquering them. He came closer. Nothing personal, but you're a useful pawn. Your death will destroy her, and then I'll rebuild what she ruined. I had nothing to fight with. No way out. So I did the only thing I could. I called through the bond with everything I had. Saskia! Vorak's hand closed around my throat, lifting me off the ground. Too late for that, I'm afraid. Then there was a sound like thunder, and something massive and white crashed into Vorak, sending him flying. He hit a tree with a sickening crack. Saskia's wolf form was bigger than any Lycan I'd seen. Enormous, ancient, powerful. Her fur was pure white, and her eyes blazed with fury. Vorak transformed again, and they collided. It was brutal. Teeth and claws. Both of them fighting with killing intent. Blood stained the snow. I wanted to look away but couldn't. This was the reality of what Saskia was. Not the gentle woman who brought me tea, but the monster the stories warned about. And she was magnificent. The fight didn't last long. Saskia was bigger, faster, and absolutely furious. She pinned Vorak to the ground, her jaws around his throat, and I felt her intent through the bond. She was going to kill him. Saskia, stop. I didn't know where the words came from. If you kill him like this, his clans will demand blood vengeance. You'll start a civil war. She didn't move, didn't release him, but through the bond, I felt her listening. Take him alive. Make him stand trial. Show everyone that you're still the better leader, that you believe in justice, not just revenge. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then she released him, transforming back to human form. She stood over Vorak's wolf form, naked and covered in blood, and utterly terrifying. You heard her, Saskia said, her voice rough. You'll stand trial for treason, attempted regicide, and the attempted murder of my wife. And when you're found guilty, and you will be, you'll face justice according to our laws. Mira and a dozen guards arrived moments later, having tracked us through the forest. They took Vorak into custody, forced back into human form and bound with silver chains. Then Saskia came to me. She grabbed a guard's cloak and wrapped it around my shoulders before scooping me into her arms like I weighed nothing. You're freezing, she said, and I heard the fear underneath the anger. You could have died, but I didn't. Only because I felt you through the bond. If we hadn't had that connection, she couldn't finish the sentence. I reached up and touched her face, still spattered with Vorak's blood, still fierce and wild. But we do have it, and I'm safe. We're both safe. She carried me back to the castle, refusing to let me walk. The attack had been repelled. Most of Vorak's mercenaries were dead or captured. We'd lost guards, though. Good people who died protecting me. Saskia took me straight to our chambers and ran a hot bath, literally sitting with me while I warmed up, monitoring me for frostbite. You stopped me from killing him, she said quietly. Why? Because you're trying to build something better than the old ways. Killing him in rage would have undermined that. He tried to murder you. I know, and I want him punished, but I want it done the right way. Your way. I caught her hand. You're not the monster, Saskia. He is. She pulled me against her, holding on like I might disappear. When I felt you in danger through the bond, when I knew I might not reach you in time, her voice broke. I can't lose you, Ilara. I know we started as a political arrangement, but you've become... I know, I whispered. I feel it too. Do you think Saskia made the right choice sparing Vorak? Comment below. The trial lasted 3 days. Vorak stood before the assembled clan leaders, bound in silver, and faced the evidence against him. His mercenaries had talked, eager to save their own skins. The plot was clear. Kill me to weaken Saskia emotionally, then challenge her while she was compromised. I acted for the good of our people, Vorak declared. Saskia has made us soft, made us servants to human whims. I sought to restore our true nature. You sought power, Saskia countered from her throne. Everything else is justification. You were willing to murder an innocent woman and plunge our territories into civil war, all because you couldn't accept that someone else leads better than you. The clan leaders voted unanimously for guilt. The sentence was exile. Vorak would be stripped of his clan leadership, his lands and titles forfeit, and banished beyond the northern borders with orders to never return on pain of death. You should have let me kill him, Saskia said that night as we watched Vorak being escorted from the castle. He'll just plot again from wherever he ends up. Maybe, but you showed everyone here that you believe in your own laws. That's worth more than his death. I leaned against her, something that had become natural over the past weeks. Besides, if he does come back, you'll have clear justification to end him. You're surprisingly bloodthirsty for a scholar. I'm learning from the best. She laughed and pulled me closer. We stood like that for a while, watching the snow fall. Things changed after the attack. The distance we'd carefully maintained dissolved. Saskia stopped sleeping in her separate room, not in mine either, but on a couch in the sitting room, close enough to reach me if danger came again. You don't have to do this, I told her. The threat's gone. Indulge me. I need to know you're safe. The bond between us grew stronger, more nuanced. I could feel her moods, her thoughts sometimes, and she could feel mine. It should have been invasive, but instead it felt like the most intimate thing I'd ever experienced. One evening, about 2 weeks after the trial, I found Saskia in the library, staring at a book without really reading it. What's wrong? I asked. Nothing. Everything. She set the book aside. I'm trying to give you space, Ilara. Trying not to push, but it's getting harder. Why? Because every day I fall a little more in love with you, and I don't know what to do about it. The words came out raw, honest. I know this started as politics. I know you didn't choose this, but I look at you now, and I can't imagine my life without you in it. My heart was pounding. Saskia, you don't have to say anything. I know this is complicated. I just needed you to know the truth, that this isn't politics for me anymore. It hasn't been for a while. I crossed the room and sat beside her. Do you know what I was thinking during the attack? When Vorak had his hand around my throat, she shook her head. I wasn't thinking about dying. I was thinking that I'd never get to tell you that I'd fallen too, that somewhere between the wedding and now, you became the person I want to wake up to, that your happiness matters to me more than my own, that when I think about the future, you're in every version of it. She stared at me. You mean that? Every word. I thought, you were just being kind, making the best of a bad situation. I was at first, but then I got to know you, the real you, and I fell for that person. I took her hand. I'm in love with you, Saskia, and it terrifies me because I didn't think this was possible. She kissed me. It wasn't gentle or tentative. It was desperate and hungry and full of weeks of restrained wanting. Her hands cupped my face, and I grabbed her shirt, pulling her closer. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, she rested her forehead against mine. I've wanted to do that for so long, she whispered. You could have asked. I was afraid you'd say no. I would have said yes. I've been waiting for you to ask. She laughed, the sound full of relief and joy. We're both idiots. Agreed. That night, I didn't sleep in my room. I slept in hers, wrapped in her arms, feeling her heartbeat through the bond and against my cheek. It felt like coming home. The next few weeks were a revelation. Saskia was an attentive lover, careful with her strength, constantly checking that I was comfortable, that I wanted what was happening. The bond made it even more intense. I could feel her pleasure as well as my own, and she could feel mine. "This is unfair," I gasped one night. "You can feel exactly what works. And you're complaining?" She grinned against my skin. Not even a little bit. But it wasn't just physical. She opened up in ways she hadn't before, telling me about her childhood, the losses she'd endured, the weight of responsibility she carried. I told her about my mother's death, my father's emotional distance, my dreams of a different life. "Do you regret it?" she asked one night. "Being here instead of whatever life you would have had?" I thought about it honestly. I regret not having a choice, but I don't regret where I ended up. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. We fell into a routine. She'd handle her duties during the day, and I'd study the territory's history and culture, trying to understand my new home better. Evenings were ours. Sometimes quiet nights reading together, sometimes walks through the castle, sometimes dinners with Mira and other friends we'd made. It felt like happiness. 3 months after the attack, on the first real day of spring, Saskia took me riding. We went deep into the forest, to a clearing where wildflowers were just starting to bloom. "I want to show you something," she said. She transformed, and I climbed onto her back, something we'd practiced until I could do it without falling off. She ran, and it was like flying. Wind in my face, her powerful muscles moving beneath me, the forest blurring past. We stopped at a cliff overlooking the entire territory. The view was breathtaking. Mountains and forests and villages, the castle in the distance, the sun setting over everything. "This is what I'm fighting for," Saskia said, back in human form, standing beside me. "All of this. The people, the peace, the future where maybe Lycans and humans don't have to be enemies. It's beautiful. It is now. It wasn't always." She turned to face me. "Ilara, I need to tell you something. Something I've been keeping from you." The serious tone made my stomach drop. "What is it?" "The mate bond. It's not just rare with humans. It's supposed to be impossible. According to every text, every piece of Lycan lore, it only works between 2 Lycans. But we have it. Yes. Which means one of 2 things. Either every piece of Lycan history is wrong, or..." She took a breath. "Or you're not entirely human." I laughed. "That's ridiculous. I'm obviously human. Are you? Think about it. The bond worked instantly. Something that takes time even between Lycans. You adapted to the castle faster than any human should. You can sense things through the bond that should be beyond human perception. And there's your family history." "What about my family history?" I had scholars look into it. "Your mother's bloodline is interesting. There are gaps, generations where records don't exist or are suspiciously vague, and several of your maternal ancestors had unusual traits, strength, longevity, unusual eye color in certain light. You think I have Lycan blood? I think it's possible. Distant, maybe several generations back, but there. It would explain everything." I sat down on a rock, trying to process this. "My father never said anything. He might not know, or he might have been protecting you. Lycan-human hybrids were hunted once, killed by both sides for being impure." She knelt in front of me. "I should have told you sooner, but I wanted to be sure before I said anything. And now you're sure?" "I think so. There are tests we can do if you want. But Ilara, whether you're fully human or part Lycan, it doesn't change how I feel about you. What if I don't want to know? Then we never speak of it again." She took my hands. "This is your choice." I thought about it, about what it would mean if she was right, about how my entire understanding of myself might need to shift. "I want to know," I said finally. "If it's true, I need to understand what I am." The test took a week. A combination of blood work, magical examination, and delving into my family's history with the help of scholars from across the territory. The results came back definitive. I was 1/8 Lycan. My great-great-grandmother had been a full-blooded Lycan who'd fallen in love with a human and hidden among them. Her nature, a secret she took to her grave. "So, what does this mean?" I asked Saskia as we sat in her study, the results spread before us. "Am I going to transform? Grow fur and fangs?" "No, the blood is too diluted for that. You'll never be able to shift form." She paused. "But it explains the bond. Explains why you've adapted so well here. And it means you'll age slower than a normal human. Not immortal, but you'll likely live twice as long as you would have otherwise. That's a lot to take in." "I know. And if you need time to process, I understand." I looked at her. This woman who'd become my everything, who I'd thought was a monster and discovered was anything but, who loved me enough to give me the truth even when it was complicated. "I'm part Lycan," I said slowly. That's actually kind of amazing. She blinked. You're taking this well. Did you expect me to panic? Maybe a little. Saskia, I've already rebuilt my entire life once. I've already accepted that I'm married to a Lycan queen and living in a castle full of shapeshifters. Finding out I have Lycan blood myself is weird, but it's not the strangest thing that's happened to me this year. She started laughing. Really laughing. The kind that bent her double. You're incredible. You know that? I'm learning. That night, lying in bed together, I asked, does this change things between us? How could it? I don't know. Maybe you wanted a fully human bride. Maybe this feels like I've been lying to you. She rolled over to face me. Elara, you are exactly who I fell in love with. Your blood doesn't change that. If anything, it just makes the bond make more sense. No regrets? Not even one. You? I thought about the terrified girl who'd sat in chains waiting to meet the monster queen. About how far I'd come. About the woman beside me who'd proven to be everything the legend said she wasn't. No regrets, I said. Just gratitude that the universe conspired to bring me here. To me. To you. What do you think about Elara's Lycan heritage reveal? Share your thoughts below. Spring bloomed into summer, and with it came new challenges. The alliance with Halvaria held, but other human kingdoms were watching our marriage with suspicion. Morsovia in particular had been making aggressive moves. Troops massing at the border, tariffs on trade goods, rhetoric about the Lycan threat. They're going to force a war, Saskia said during a council meeting. King Aldrich wants to test our strength, see if the alliance makes us vulnerable. Or he wants to see if you'll choose your wife's people over your own, one of the clan leaders suggested. I'm not choosing sides. I'm trying to prevent bloodshed. But I could feel her frustration through the bond. The situation deteriorated over the following weeks. Border skirmishes broke out. Morsovian raiders attacked Lycan villages, and Saskia was forced to respond with military action. The raids stopped, but the tension remained. Then came the letter from King Aldrich himself, a formal declaration demanding that Saskia dissolve our marriage and end the alliance with Halvaria, or face full-scale war. He's giving you an ultimatum, I said, reading over her shoulder. Me or peace. There won't be peace either way. He just wants an excuse to attack. Saskia crumpled the letter. He thinks taking you from me will break my spirit, make me an easier target. What are you going to do? What I always do. Prepare for war, and hope diplomacy works. She pulled me close. But I'm not giving you up. That's not even a consideration, even if it would prevent deaths. You think he'd stop if I sent you away? He'd just find another excuse. Men like Aldrich want war because it makes them feel powerful. They'll manufacture justification no matter what I do. She was probably right, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was the spark that would ignite a much larger fire. I wrote to my father, asking for his help mediating with Aldrich. His response was cautious. He'd try, but he had limited influence with Morsovia, and openly supporting Saskia might make Halvaria a target as well. He's scared, I told Saskia, and I can't blame him. His kingdom is small. He can't afford to make enemies of either side. I know. I'm not expecting him to solve this. She was at her desk, reviewing troop deployments. But it would be nice not to feel so alone in this. You're not alone. You have me. She looked up, her expression softening. I know. That's the only thing keeping me sane right now. The war came 2 weeks later. Morsovian forces crossed the border in force. 10,000 troops, cavalry, siege equipment. They took 3 villages before Saskia could mobilize a response. I watched her transform from the woman I loved into the general the legends described. She was ruthless, brilliant, and absolutely terrifying. She led from the front, her white wolf form a beacon in battle, rallying her warriors. Through the bond, I felt everything. The thrill of combat, the pain of injuries, the grief when warriors fell. It was overwhelming. You need to mute the bond, Mira told me after the first major battle. She's trying to shield you, but emotions bleed through. It's going to destroy you if you feel every moment of this war. I can't abandon her like that. You're not abandoning her. You're protecting yourself, so you can be there for her when she comes back. Mira's expression was kind. Saskia wouldn't want you suffering through this. She was right. I asked the priestess to mute the bond, not sever it, just reduce it to a whisper. I could still feel Saskia's presence, could sense if she was in real danger, but the constant barrage of battle emotions faded. It helped, but it also made me feel disconnected from her in a way I hated. The war dragged on for 3 months. Battles won and lost, territory taken and retaken. The death toll climbed on both sides. I did what I could from the castle. I helped coordinate supply lines. I worked in the infirmary, tending to wounded warriors. I wrote letters to other human kingdoms, trying to drum up support, or at least neutrality. Some responded positively. Others ignored me. A few sent back hostile letters calling me a traitor to my kind. That hurt more than I expected. "You're in an impossible position," one of the healers told me as we worked. "Human to the Lycans, Lycan to the humans. You belong to both, and neither." "Story of my life," I muttered, bandaging a warrior's leg. Saskia came back to the castle rarely, only when absolutely necessary. When she did, she was exhausted, covered in blood and dirt, carrying the weight of command like it was crushing her. I'd draw her a bath, feed her, hold her while she slept. She'd wake a few hours later and be gone again, back to the front lines. "I hate this," she said one night, her head in my lap as I ran my fingers through her hair. "I hate that I'm good at war. I hate that people die because of my orders. You're trying to protect your people. So is Aldrich, in his own twisted way. He thinks Lycans are a threat that needs to be eliminated." She closed her eyes. "What if he's right? What if we're too dangerous to coexist with humans? You're not dangerous. You're just different." I kept stroking her hair. "And if Aldrich can't see that, it says more about him than it does about you. I'm tired, Alara. Tired of fighting. Tired of proving that we deserve to exist. Then end it." She opened her eyes. "How?" "Challenge him. Lycan tradition. Single combat. Winner takes all. He's human. He'd never accept. Make him. Send word that you'll withdraw from all disputed territories if he faces you himself. His pride won't let him refuse, and if he does, he looks weak to his own people." She sat up, studying me. "That's actually brilliant. And terrifying. Since when do you think like a strategist? I learned from the best." She kissed me, deep and grateful. "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do." The challenge was sent the next day. King Aldrich's response came within a week. He accepted, but with conditions. The fight would be in human form, with human weapons. No transforming, no Lycan advantages. "He's trying to neutralize your strengths," Mira said, reading the terms. "You're bigger and stronger, but he's trained as a knight his entire life. In armor, with swords, he might actually have a chance." "I know." Saskia didn't look worried. "But I'm still better." The combat was scheduled for the first day of autumn, on neutral ground between the territories. Both armies would be present as witnesses, and both leaders had agreed to abide by the outcome. Winner would set the terms of peace. "I don't like this," I told Saskia the night before. "What if something goes wrong? Then you'll be queen, and you'll rule better than I ever could. Don't joke about that." "I'm not joking. If I fall tomorrow, this kingdom is yours. The clan leaders have already been informed." She pulled me close. "But I'm not planning to lose. Promise me. I promise I'll do everything in my power to come back to you." It wasn't enough, but it was all I'd get. The next morning, we rode to the neutral ground, a field that had been cleared specifically for this purpose. Stands had been erected for witnesses, and both armies lined opposite sides of the field. King Aldrich was already there, a big man in gleaming armor, sword at his side. He looked confident. Too confident. Saskia wore simple leather armor and carried a longsword that had seen real combat. She looked calm, focused, every inch the warrior queen. They met in the center of the field. A neutral arbiter, a scholar from a third kingdom, explained the rules. Fight until one yielded or died. No interference from either side. The winner's terms would be honored by both parties. "Any last words before we begin?" the arbiter asked. Aldrich spoke first. "I do this for humanity. For a future where we don't live in fear of monsters." Saskia's response was quieter, but carried across the field. "I do this for peace, for a future where we don't have to be enemies." The arbiter stepped back. "Begin." They circled each other. Aldrich struck first, a powerful overhead swing that Saskia sidestepped easily. She countered with a quick slash that he blocked, and then they were fully engaged. It was brutal. Aldrich was skilled, no question, but Saskia was better, faster, stronger, more experienced. She drove him back across the field, her attacks precise and devastating. But Aldrich was clever. He fought defensively, letting Saskia tire herself out, and slowly, it started to work. Her attacks became slightly slower, her breathing more labored. Through the muted bond, I felt her exhaustion. felt the pain of old injuries from the war reopening, felt her determination pushing through it. "Come on," I whispered. "You can do this." Aldrich saw his opening and took it. A thrust aimed at Saskia's side, slipping through her guard. The sword bit deep, and blood bloomed across her leather armor. I was on my feet before I realized it, Mira grabbing my arm to stop me from running onto the field. Saskia stumbled back, blood running down her side. Aldrich pressed his advantage, raining down blows that she barely blocked. This was it. She was going to lose, going to die. Then something changed. I felt it through the bond, a surge of pure determination, of refusal to fail, of love for her people and for me that wouldn't let her fall. Saskia roared, a sound that was almost a wolf's howl, and exploded into motion. She disarmed Aldrich with 3 quick strikes, sending his sword flying. Then she had him on the ground, her blade at his throat. "Yield," she commanded. He stared up at her, defiant and terrified at once. "Kill me. Prove you're the monster everyone says." "No." She stepped back, lowering her sword. "I'm proving I'm better than that." The field erupted in noise, cheering from the Lycan side, shocked silence from the humans. Aldrich struggled to his feet. I yielded. "Name your terms." Saskia straightened despite her injury. "The war ends today. Morzovia will recognize the Northern Territories as an independent nation and will not interfere in our internal affairs. In exchange, we will not expand beyond our current borders and will maintain open trade relations. That's generous. I told you. I want peace, not conquest." She turned to address both armies. "This war was pointless. Both sides lost people we can't replace. Let's not waste any more lives on pride and fear. What did you think of the duel? Drop your reactions below." Saskia's injury was worse than she'd let on. By the time we got back to the castle, she was barely conscious from blood loss. "Why didn't you say something?" I demanded as healers worked on her. "Because I needed to finish the negotiations first." She winced as they stitched the wound. "And because I knew you'd worry. Of course I worried. I watched you nearly die. But I didn't. I'm here." She caught my hand. "I'm here. And the war's over. And we won." The healers said she'd need weeks to fully recover. The wound had been deep, and she'd pushed herself too hard immediately after. She needed rest. Saskia was terrible at resting. "I have responsibilities," she argued from her bed, where I'd physically blocked her from getting up. "Which other people can handle for a few days. You're recovering." "Ilara, no, you nearly died. You're staying in this bed if I have to tie you to it." She actually smiled at that. "Kinky, I hate you." "No, you don't." I didn't. I loved her so much it hurt. The territory celebrated the end of the war. Peace treaties were signed. Trade routes reopened. Slowly, cautiously, humans and Lycans began to interact more openly. It wasn't perfect. There was still suspicion on both sides. But it was a start. A month after the duel, when Saskia was finally healed, we took a trip to Halvaria. I hadn't seen my father since the wedding, and it was time. King Edmund received us formally, all protocol and diplomatic courtesy. But when we were alone, he hugged me tightly. "I'm sorry," he said quietly, "for sending you away like that, for not even saying goodbye. I understand why you did it. That doesn't make it right." He pulled back, studying my face. "But you look happy. Genuinely happy. I didn't expect that." "Neither did I admitted. "But I am." We stayed for a week, and I showed Saskia my childhood home, the library where I'd spent so much time, the gardens where my mother used to tell me stories, the life I'd left behind. "Do you miss it?" Saskia asked as we walked through the castle halls. "Sometimes, but I don't belong here anymore. My home is with you." On our last night in Halvaria, my father gave me a chest of my mother's belongings. She would have wanted you to have these. Inside were letters, journals, and a locket I'd never seen before. I opened it to find a portrait of my mother and another woman, tall, with silver-streaked dark hair and striking amber eyes. "Who is this?" I asked. My father's expression was complicated. "Your grandmother, your mother's mother. She died before you were born, but I recognized those eyes. I'd seen them in mirrors, in my own reflection when the light was right. She was the Lycan," I said quietly, "the one who hid among humans." He nodded. "Your mother knew. She made me promise never to tell you, afraid it would put you in danger. But I think she'd want you to know now that you're safe." I looked at Saskia, who was studying the portrait with interest. "She looks like you," she said, "around the eyes." "She kept this secret her whole life," I said. tracing the portrait. Lived as human, loved a human, had children, all while hiding what she really was. It must have been lonely, Saskia said quietly. That night, I read through my grandmother's journals, the ones my mother had kept. They told the story of a Lycan woman who'd fallen in love with a human scholar, who'd chosen to give up her pack, her nature, everything, to be with him. I don't regret my choice, she'd written. Love is worth any sacrifice. But I miss the moon, miss running free, miss being whole. She gave up everything, I told Saskia. For love, yes, but she lost so much. You haven't lost anything, haven't I? I'm not fully human anymore in most people's eyes, but I'm not Lycan enough to transform. I'm something in between. Saskia was quiet for a moment. Is that how you see yourself? As incomplete? Sometimes. She pulled me close. You're not incomplete. You're exactly what you're supposed to be. Human enough to understand both sides. Lycan enough to belong with me. You're the bridge between our peoples, Alara. That's not a flaw. That's your strength. We returned to Silver Peak as autumn settled over the mountains. The territory was thriving. New trade agreements, new alliances, a peace that looked like it might actually hold. I threw myself into work, establishing a school for both Lycan and human children, creating exchange programs between territories, building the infrastructure for lasting peace. You're building something remarkable, Saskia said one evening as we reviewed the school plans. We're building it, I corrected. This is all of us. 6 months after the war ended, we received an unexpected visitor, King Aldrich of Morsovia, requesting an audience. He looked older than when we'd last seen him, worn down by something. Saskia received him formally but warily. I came to apologize, he said without preamble. And to warn you. Warn us about what? There's a faction of human kingdoms, led by Valdris in the south, that's planning another war. A coordinated assault on all Lycan territories, meant to wipe you out once and for all. He met Saskia's eyes. They approached me to join them. I refused, but they're coming, and they have numbers on their side. Why tell us this? I asked. Because you spared my life when you had every right to take it. Because this war was wrong, and the next one will be worse. He turned to me. And because Princess, Queen Consort Alara wrote me a letter every week during my recovery, sharing news from both territories, building bridges I'd tried to burn. She showed me that coexistence is possible. Saskia looked at me. You've been writing to him? I thought it might help, I said defensively. It did, Aldrich confirmed. More than you know. You have an ally in Morsovia now. When Valdris comes, you won't stand alone. He left, and Saskia pulled me into her arms. You continue to amaze me. I just wrote some letters. You turned an enemy into an ally through sheer persistence and kindness. That's not just anything. The threat from Valdris was real. Over the following months, we prepared, building alliances, fortifying defenses, training warriors. But this time, it was different. This time, we had human allies standing with us. Morsovia sent troops. Halvaria offered supplies and strategic support. Smaller kingdoms that had remained neutral now openly backed us. The narrative was shifting. It wasn't humans versus Lycans anymore. It was those who wanted peace versus those who wanted war. Your vision is actually happening, Saskia said, as we watched joint human-Lycan patrols training together. Integration, cooperation, a future where we're not enemies. Our vision, I corrected. I couldn't do any of this without you. The war with Valdris when it came was brutal, but short. The coalition we'd built was too strong, too unified. Valdris couldn't fracture it the way he'd hoped. After 3 major battles, all victories for our side, he sued for peace. The terms were harsh. Valdris would abdicate, his kingdom divided among neighbors who'd remained neutral. An international council would be established to mediate future disputes. And most importantly, Lycan territories would be recognized as sovereign nations with full rights to self-governance. We did it, I said, as we watched the treaties being signed. Actual, lasting peace. For now, Saskia cautioned, there will always be those who want to go back to the old ways. We'll have to remain vigilant. We will. Together. That night, back in our chambers, Saskia had something to tell me. There's a Lycan ceremony, she said, for mate bonds that prove true. It's permanent, binding not just in this life, but in whatever comes after. It means committing to each other completely, forever. Like getting married again? More than that. It's soul deep. Once done, we're connected until one of us dies. And even then, The bond echoes. She took my hands. I want that with you. Want to be bound to you in every way possible, but only if you want it too. I thought about my grandmother, who'd given up everything for love, about my journey from terrified bride to queen consort, to warrior in my own right, about this woman who'd proven to be everything the legends said she wasn't. Yes, I said. Absolutely yes. The ceremony was private, just us and the priestess. She bound our hands again, but this time with cords made from our own hair, woven together. She spoke words in the old tongue, calling on the moon and the ancient spirits. I felt the moment the bond solidified, like something clicking into place deep in my chest. Suddenly, I could feel Saskia completely. Her love, her commitment, her absolute certainty that we belonged together, and she could feel mine. Forever, she whispered. Forever, I agreed. 2 years later, we stood on the same cliff where Saskia had first told me about my heritage. The territory stretched before us, thriving and peaceful. Villages where humans and Lycans lived side by side. Trade routes that connected territories that had been enemies for centuries. Children, both species, playing together without fear. I never thought I'd see this, Saskia said. Real peace, actual integration. We built something good, I said, leaning against her. You built it. I just provided the muscle. No, we built it together. Your strength and my diplomacy, your past and my present. We're the bridge, Saskia, both of us. She pulled me close, and through the bond, I felt her contentment, her love, her absolute certainty that this, us, was right. I have something to tell you, she said. What? The healers confirmed it yesterday. You're pregnant. I stared at her. That's not possible. I'm only part Lycan, and even then. Apparently the mate bond changes things, makes the impossible possible. She looked nervous. Are you okay with this? I know we never discussed children. I thought about it. About a child who would be the perfect symbol of everything we'd built. Human and Lycan. Bridge between worlds. Proof that coexistence wasn't just possible, but beautiful. I'm more than okay, I said. I'm thrilled. Her relief was palpable. Good. Because I'm terrified and excited and have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. Like everything else. Like everything else. We stood there as the sun set, watching our kingdom, our home, settle into evening. Behind us lay a past full of violence and fear. Ahead was a future we were building one day at a time. And beside me was the woman they'd said was heartless. The monster from the stories. The tyrant queen. My wife. My mate. My love. They'd been wrong about her. About all of it. Because the scariest thing about Saskia wasn't her strength or her wolf form, or her capacity for violence. It was how completely she loved, how fiercely she protected, how she'd taken a frightened girl who'd been sold into marriage and shown her that sometimes the stories lie. Sometimes the monster is the hero. And sometimes the forced marriage becomes the greatest love story ever told. But then again, I was biased. After all, she treated me like I was precious. And I knew, down to my bones, through the bond that connected us forever, that I was. End. We've reached the end of this epic journey, but the story doesn't stop here. What do you think happens next? Will their child unite the kingdoms even further? What challenges might they face as a family? Drop your theories and thoughts in the comments. And if you loved this story, let me know what kind of story you'd like to see next.